Hey everybody, Martin Gilmore here. I got a lot of questions about how to play Wichita Lineman after I posted it on my channel the other day. And so I thought I'd just kind of come on here and show you my version of Wichita Lineman, what I do, how I play it. If you would like to have a chart of these chords, you can visit my Patreon and become a subscriber there, and you'll find a chart of Wichita Lineman, as well as a lot more chord charts for some of these songs and lessons as we go along. It's a great place to kind of find those resources. So let's just kind of start with the basics of the chords. Wichita Lineman, the verse is kind of split into two halves. The first half has some fairly complex chords, and the second part kind of has some more simple chords. The biggest thing about it is kind of getting your hands to move in the right way to get those voicings. They can be sort of challenging for folks. The song starts on an F suspended, or an F add 9 if you want to say. I'm adding a G note to an F chord. And I play it like this. I wrap my thumb over the top to grab the first fret of the low E string with my thumb. Then I kind of make an E minor type shape with these two fingers at the third fret. And then my first finger on an F chord should probably bar these two strings, and I could do that if I needed to. But most of the time, I just play the C note here on the B string. So that chord kind of looks like that. My middle finger is up. Now, sometimes I'll bounce back and forth just to kind of give some color and texture to those chords, where I'll play an actual F major like that. And then sometimes I'll lift my first finger up to my middle finger up to give it that G note and give it a suspension. So you can kind of practice moving that. This is hard. This chord is hard. A lot of people, when they start out on the guitar, the F chord is one that is real challenging, and this makes it even harder, especially having to wrap that thumb over. But that's where I'm getting that bass note, so it's important to get your thumb over the top. I'm grabbing the back of the neck of the guitar with my hand. It's one of the few chords where you actually get to palm the guitar like that. The next chord is a G minor chord, G minor 7 chord. So I play it by barring 3 fingers with my ring finger. Now you kind of have to bend your finger like that. Some people struggle to do that. I totally understand. You could abbreviate this chord and just use these 2 fingers and kind of play just those 3 strings, the E string, the D string, and the G string. But it just has better color if you can get that D note in there too. So practice kind of barring those 3 strings with your ring finger. It takes some practice, but you could do it. And then you'll have to practice going back and forth between those 2, because that's the first 2 chords of this song. F with a suspension, G minor 7. And you could also kind of practice that groove like that. Just practice changing those chords. That's sort of challenging. You use this chord shape quite a bit in this song, so get familiar with this kind of chord shape. It's pretty useful in a lot of different styles of music and in a lot of different songs, but especially for this one. So after you've done that a couple of times, kind of get your introduction established, then you're going to play a C9 with a suspended 4, which sounds really hard, but it's basically you bar all 5 strings at the 3rd fret. You don't bar the low E string. In fact, I just mute that and I don't play it. Actually, I kind of am muting it with the tip of this finger, but honestly, I just don't play that low E string. It wouldn't matter if it was unmuted or not. And I play it that way. So that's going to be your 5 chord. That's kind of the intro. It's going back and forth between these 2. Kind of leaning these fingers on it to make sure that I get a good seat on that bar chord. From there, your ear kind of wants the song to go back to the F chord, but it doesn't do that. It goes to the B flat major 7, which is a really cool chord change. And I wish I'd have thought of it. It's pretty fantastic. So these 3 fingers are basically making an A minor shape with your ring finger at the 7th fret. So your ring finger and pinky finger on the 7th fret. Your middle finger is on the B string at the 6th fret. And then your first finger reaches down and grabs the B flat note on the low E string. And that's the B flat major 7. It goes there. Then it goes to an A minor 7, but it's the same shape, you'll notice, as the G minor 7 that we played before. And then down to G minor 7, like that. So that whole change. Practice those. One of the things that I always try to do whenever I'm learning hard chords like this, or complicated chords, especially if you're new to it, is just practice going from this chord to the next one, back to that chord to the next one. And if you really want to do well and get ahead, you can practice going from, maybe this B flat major 7 is new to you, you practice going from that one to the G minor 7, that one to the F. So you're practicing changing from each chord to every other chord. That'll help you get better faster. Even though in this song you don't make that change, in some other song you will. So it's worth the time just to kind of get familiar with the chords and where your fingers need to be to work on changing to lots of different stuff. B flat major 7, A minor 7, G minor 7. Then the next one is a D minor 7. Now this shape is kind of unusual and some people really struggle with it. Your first finger now is going to be on the lowest string. It's actually on the A string in this case. And you kind of leapfrog across everything on the same fret. So here we're at the 5th fret, and then your pinky finger grabs the B string at the 6th fret. This is a minor 7, a D minor 7 in this position. If you move this whole chord shape over one string, so your first finger's now on the low string and everything else has moved over to be the same, it becomes an A dominant 7. So that's, oh, my pinky finger's in the wrong place. Yeah, if that makes sense. So that's a good shape to kind of learn, because there's a lot of songs where you're going to move that around. They're doing construction on my street. Sorry if you're hearing rumbling. It's an adventure in my neighborhood. All right, so then it goes D minor 7, A minor 7, and then to G major. Now I just play a G5 here. I don't play a third in the chord. So there's no B note on the A string. I have that muted. And then you'll notice my ring finger is playing a D note on the B string. So this is actually just G's and D's. It's not a triad. It's not a chord. In bluegrass, we would call that a G5. Other people would call it a G5. But this is a pretty standard shape for bluegrass guitar players. It works great in this situation. Then you go to a D chord after that, and that's a place where a key change happens. So from here, you're functioning out of a different key. So just to kind of recap, if you go back to the video and watch how I'm playing it, there are 2 videos, I guess. Watch either one. You'll see like this chord shape move down, and then it lands on the D, and then from there we kind of walk down with a C note in the bass. My ring finger stays where it is, and it's kind of implied as a D. Now I have the E string muted, so I'm kind of just playing the middle strings of the guitar, and I'm muting the low E string. So there's a lot of like tricks going on here, where my thumb is muting the low E string, my ring finger's muting the high E string, so that I could play all the strings of the guitar, but the only ones you're hearing are the ones that are within the chord. Walk down to the first fingers there, my ring finger stays where it is, walks down again to a B flat. Now this is probably technically a G minor, and there is another way that I play this sometimes that is a pretty straight up G minor chord, but you don't have to. You could just keep your ring finger where it is and walk your first finger down. You'll notice I'm stretching pretty far though. That can be difficult for some people. Not as difficult maybe as the other way I'm going to show you in a second. Like that, and then it lands on G. The Wichita, back to D, and then to A, I play an A7, and then I'll suspend it with my ring finger there. And then you land on a B flat. Back to C. C9, sus4. You're back around to the top. On that walk down section, I said there's another chord that I sometimes use, another way that I play it. Sometimes I'll play it like this with the D down to the C, down to the B. And then you can, if you want to play the G minor, you can bar the top 3 strings of the guitar right here, and that makes a G minor triad, and then you reach way out with your pinky finger to the 6th fret on the low E string. G minor chord with a B flat in the bass. Now that's tricky. It's hard to play. You have to kind of reach pretty far, but it's a really cool voicing, and it puts that bass note on that big heavy low E string, so it's got a good timbre to it. So a lot of times I might play it that way just because I like the sound, you know, where I'm doing this walk down. You can kind of practice with whichever way you would want to play it. I think it's easier. I think it's hard to get these 3 strings kind of barred. You could cheat and just do those 2 and still have a G minor chord, but I don't think that voicing is super great for a solo guitar. That voicing is really great, but again, a pretty difficult chord to play. Sometimes, this is not the way Jimmy Webb does it, but sometimes I like to go to the G major first and then change to the 4 minor. You go basically to the 4 chord and then change to the 4 minor, just because I like that chord change. That's not what Jimmy Webb does, though. So if you're a purist, stick with his thing. Yeah, some things about the right hand. There's a lot of stuff going on with the right hand. Basically, the beat is kind of like, I do like down up kind of on the low strings, down up, chuck. So it's kind of like splitting the guitar in half. So down up on the bass strings, and then down up on the high strings. And then I kind of use my left hand to add some other rhythm. So kind of see roughly. That's kind of oversimplifying it. Really, I kind of want to always have this kind of snare drum hit going on. So my right hand's doing a lot of pretty complex but subtle, like, rhythmic movements. It's not enough, really, I feel like whenever you're playing solo, it's not enough to kind of choose a strumming pattern and then that's the thing you do all the time. Your rhythm guitar needs to kind of match up with whatever's going on in the song, and it needs to change. It needs to help emphasize the phrases. So you have to be thoughtful in your rhythm guitar playing and kind of divide it out. But until you could do it, you can kind of, you have to kind of develop some skills. So just for this, if you were to practice like the low strings and then the high strings, in that case, my hand's just going like this, and I'm using my left hand to kind of mute. You can see it pressing down. So I can add a lot of rhythmic elements just by lifting my fingers up. I'm not taking them off the strings, I just stop pressing down, and I can get a lot of like rhythm, and my right hand's just doing this. That's actually probably a good place to start with just that strumming pattern. That kind of gives you all that beat. Takes a lot of coordination to get that down. So kind of mess around with that first. My recommendation would be learn the chords first, because that stuff is challenging if you don't already know the chords. And then you can start messing around with the rhythm and the right hand stuff. I'm going to do some more videos soon on playing rhythm and kind of how to outline songs playing rhythm, but that's kind of a good place to start. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. If you're looking for a chart, head on over to my Patreon and check it out there. And thanks so much for listening. Good luck.